Franklin Hayes sat on his porch that December evening, fixing an old radio while snow began to fall. His hands, steady hands that had framed this house in '78, that had served his country, that had never broken a promise, worked the solder iron with the kind of patience you earn over 66 years. Inside, he heard Mara getting ready. Perfume. The kind she hadn't worn in a decade. She came out in makeup and her good coat. "Book club," she said. "Don't wait up." It was 8 o'clock, in a snowstorm. "Roads are getting bad, honey," he said quietly. She looked at him like he was furniture. "Don't wait up. Actually, don't bother." Through the workshop window, he saw Jake Morrison's truck idling at the corner, watched his wife of 40 years walk toward it without looking back. The screen door slammed. Franklin sat there listening to the static. The coffee went cold in his mug. He didn't get up to fix it. That was the night everything changed. The next morning, Mara made blueberry pancakes. Franklin came into the kitchen and stopped. She was humming, wearing the apron he'd given her 20 years back, the one with the faded chickens on it. The smell of butter and cinnamon filled the air, and for a second, just a second, he let himself believe it had all been nothing. "Morning," she said, bright as Sunday. "Sit down. Coffee's fresh." He sat. She brought him a plate, touched his shoulder as she passed. Her hand lingered there, warm through his flannel shirt. "I was thinking," she said, pouring syrup, "maybe we should visit Vicky for Christmas. It's been too long." 8 years too long. Their daughter hadn't spoken to him since the wedding argument, but Mara knew that, knew it hurt. "That'd be nice," Franklin said carefully. She smiled, ate her pancakes, asked about his day like wives do. He wanted so badly to believe her. 3 days later, Dorothy Chen knocked on his door with a Tupperware of pierogi. Dorothy was 70, Chinese by way of Taiwan, by way of 40 years in Ohio, lived next door in the house with the garden that looked like a magazine even in winter. Her husband Henry had died 5 years back, and since then she'd kept to herself mostly. Friendly waves, Christmas cookies, nothing more. "Can we talk?" she said. Franklin let her in. She set the pierogi on his kitchen table and pulled out her phone. "I need to show you something," Dorothy said. "I've been watching 6 weeks now." She opened her photo gallery, started scrolling. The first picture was dated September 18th. Mara's car in the parking lot of the Riverside Inn, 40 miles away, timestamp, 2:47 p.m. The second picture showed Jake Morrison getting out of his truck in the same lot. Same day, 2:51 p.m. Dorothy kept scrolling. October 3rd, October 17th, November 2nd, November 20th. Different dates, same hotel, same 2 cars. "Dorothy," Franklin said quietly. "I know," she said. "I know it's not my business, but my Henry—" Her voice caught. "My Henry was betrayed the same way, by his business partner and some woman from the office. I didn't have proof then. Couldn't help him. He had a heart attack 6 months later, and I always wondered if the stress—" She wiped her eyes. "You deserve proof, Franklin. You deserve to know what you're dealing with." Franklin looked at the phone, at his wife's car, at Jake Morrison's truck, at the timestamps that didn't lie. "How many?" he asked. 14 visits I've documented. There are probably more I missed." The mail slot clanged. Franklin got up, moved like he was underwater, pulled out the usual stack, bills, catalogs, bank statement. He opened the statement right there in the hallway, joint savings account, his father's money, the inheritance from the old man's factory pension, the cushion for emergencies, for medical bills, for the end of life when you need it most. 3 withdrawals, $15,000, $17,000, $15,000, balance, $47,000, gone. Dorothy was beside him. "Franklin?" He showed her the statement. "Jesus," she whispered. Franklin walked to the kitchen trash can, started digging through coffee grounds and banana peels, found it near the bottom, a business card, coffee-stained, bin at the corner. Jake Morrison, Senior Loan Officer, Pinnacle Lending Solutions. A phone number was written on the back in Mara's handwriting. That evening, Mara came home late, 9:30, cheerful. "How was your day?" she asked, hanging up her coat. Franklin was at the kitchen table. The statement was in front of him. So was the business card. "Fine," he said. She glanced at the table. Her eyes caught on the papers for just a second. A flicker, quick as a snake, then moved away. "I'm exhausted," she said. "Book club ran long. I'm going to bed." She kissed the top of his head as she passed. Her perfume, that perfume, lingered after she was gone. Franklin sat there until midnight. Then he went to his workshop. The deed to the house was in his fire safe. He pulled it out, unfolded it. Every word written in careful legal language, but the meaning was simple. This house was his. He'd built it with his own hands in 1978, framed it, wired it, plumbed it, chose every board, drove every nail, paid it off in 1998. His father's note was tucked inside the deed, written in shaky handwriting 2 weeks before the old man died. "Take care of yourself, son." Franklin's hands were shaking now. Across the yard, through his workshop window, he could see Dorothy's kitchen light on. She was still awake too, still watching. He heard Mara's voice from the bedroom, muffled through the walls. She was on the phone. The words were unclear, but the tone was bright, happy. Franklin moved closer to the workshop door, opened it a crack. "He doesn't suspect anything," Mara's voice carried across the cold air. "By spring, we'll have everything." She laughed, actually laughed. Franklin closed the door, stood in his workshop, the place where he'd built cradles for his daughter, repaired neighbors' lawnmowers, fixed things that were broken, and realized that some things can't be fixed. Some things are already gone. The envelope came on a Tuesday. Franklin knew what it was before he opened it. The return address said, Brennan and Associates, Family Law. The weight of it in his hands felt like a verdict. He sat at the kitchen table, the same table where they'd had coffee every morning for 40 years, and read, Petition for Dissolution of Marriage. Respondent, Franklin James Hayes. Mara wanted the house, she wanted half his pension, she wanted it all on grounds that Franklin was mentally incompetent to manage financial affairs and emotionally abusive. There was a list. Incidents, they called them. March 2024. Respondent yelled at petitioner, threw kitchen items, never happened. June 2024. Respondent made threatening statements, frightened petitioner, never happened. October 2024. Respondent exhibited signs of memory loss and confusion, unable to perform basic tasks. He'd built a goddamn computer desk for Dorothy in October. Measured, cut, assembled. Memory just fine. Every word was a lie, but it was typed up official, notarized, filed with the court. Franklin called Earl Hodges. Earl showed up 3 hours later with a six-pack of Yingling and a briefcase. He was 68, built like a fire hydrant, with a paralegal certificate he'd earned after retiring from the Army. He'd been Franklin's buddy since Bosnia, since the day Franklin pulled him out of a burning truck while mortars were landing close enough to feel in your chest. "Let me see it," Earl said. They sat at the kitchen table. Earl read for 20 minutes without speaking. Then he pulled out a yellow legal pad and started making notes. "This is bad," Earl said finally. "I know." "No, I mean this is professional bad. This isn't some angry wife making shit up. This is somebody who knows how the system works." Earl flipped to the financial section. "Look here. She's claiming you forged her signature on a refinance application. Says you tried to take out an equity loan without her knowledge." Franklin blinked. "What refinance?" Earl pulled out his laptop, started typing. "Give me 20 minutes. On the new one." While Earl worked, Franklin made coffee. Bad coffee, the kind you make when you're not really thinking about it. Earl didn't complain. "Son of a bitch," Earl said. Franklin looked over his shoulder. On the screen was a loan application. Pinnacle Lending Solutions. For $85,000 against Franklin's house. Signature at the bottom that looked like Franklin's but wasn't quite right. Notarized 3 weeks ago by someone named Jennifer Caldwell. "That's not my signature," Franklin said. "I know, but it's close. Real close. Somebody practiced." Earl kept digging, pulled up Jake Morrison's LinkedIn profile. Senior loan officer, Pinnacle Lending Solutions, specializing in equity release and reverse mortgages for seniors. "He does this for a living," Earl said. "This is his job. Find seniors with paid-off houses, find a way in, extract the equity." "Through their wives?" "However it works. Your wife just happens to be the access point." Earl looked up. "Franklin, you're not the first. I'd bet my pension on it." Franklin sat down heavy. The coffee tasted like ashes. "What do I do?" "We fight. But it's going to take time and money. Forensic document analysis to prove forgery, that's $8,000. Depositions, court costs, lawyer fees if we can't do this ourselves." Earl did math on his legal pad. "You're looking at 20, maybe 30,000 to fight this properly." Franklin had 23,000 left in savings. After Mara took 47. "I'll do what I can as your paralegal," Earl said. "But Franklin, I gotta be honest, these cases are hard. She's got documentation, you've got your word. System tends to believe the written accusations, especially from women claiming abuse. I never touched her. I know that, but proving it? Earl shook his head. Saturday morning, Franklin went to the hardware store for furnace filters. Place was busy, weekend crowd, guys buying supplies for winter projects. Tommy Brennan was at the register, known him 30 years. Tommy's dad had helped Franklin frame this house back in '78. "Hey, Franklin," Tommy said, then careful like, "How's Mara doing?" The store went quiet, not silent, but that particular kind of quiet where everybody's listening while pretending not to. Franklin stood there with furnace filters in his hand. Tommy's face was doing that thing, that sympathetic, pitying thing. Poor old guy. Wife left him. "You hear about that?" "She's fine," Franklin managed. Good, that's good." Tommy rang up the filters, but his eyes were saying something else, saying we all know. Franklin set the filters down. "Never mind. I'll come back." He walked out, got in his truck, sat there in the parking lot while guys came and went, loading lumber and bags of salt, and he knew they were all talking about him. The old guy, whose wife left him for the gym, rat down the street. He drove home without the filters. That afternoon, the sheriff came. Franklin was in his workshop when he heard the knock. Official knock, the kind that's not friendly. Sheriff Morrison, no relation to Jake, but wouldn't that be something, stood on the porch with papers. "Franklin Hayes?" "That's me." "I'm sorry about this." The sheriff handed him an envelope. "Restraining order. You're required to stay 500 feet from Mara Hayes. No contact, no communication. Violation is a criminal offense." Franklin opened it, read it standing there while snow started falling again. Petitioner fears for her safety. Respondent has exhibited escalating threatening behavior. Petitioner requires protection from further harassment and potential violence. "This is bullshit," Franklin said quietly. "That's for the court to decide. I'm just serving the papers." The sheriff looked uncomfortable. "You need to understand, while she's at the house, you can't be there. You see her car, you leave. You understand?" Franklin looked at his house. His house. The one he built. "I understand." The sheriff left. Franklin stood on his porch watching the taillights disappear down the street. 10 minutes later, Mara's car pulled into the driveway. Jake's truck right behind it. They were there to collect her things. In Franklin's house. And he couldn't do a damn thing about it. He sat in his truck in the driveway, watched them carry boxes out. 2 hours in the cold, his breath fogging the windows. His house. His house. And he couldn't even go inside. When they finally left, Mara looked at him through his truck window, not angry, not scared, just blank, like he wasn't even there. That night, Pastor Mike Hendricks called. "Franklin, it's Mike. From church." "Hey, Pastor. Listen, I'm concerned. Mara came to see me. She's pretty upset. Says things have been difficult. She mentioned you've been struggling." There it was, the careful language. Struggling, like he was the problem. "I'm managing," Franklin said. "Have you considered counseling? Sometimes when we get older, the stress of daily life can feel overwhelming. There's no shame in asking for help." Franklin closed his eyes. "I appreciate the call, Pastor. The church is here for you, Franklin. Both of you, whatever you're going through." After he hung up, Franklin sat in his workshop, couldn't bear to be in the empty house, read through the restraining order again. The competency claims, the abuse allegations. One line stopped him cold. Subject shows signs of memory loss, confusion, and inability to manage daily tasks. Professional evaluation recommended. Earl's voice echoed in his head. If they get that evaluation from the right doctor, you could lose everything, not just the house, but your autonomy. They weren't just trying to take his property, they were trying to erase him. 2 weeks passed like drowning. Franklin stopped sleeping more than 3-4 hours a night. He'd lie there in the guest room, couldn't stand the bedroom anymore, couldn't stand where she used to sleep, and stare at the ceiling until the numbers on the clock stopped meaning anything. He lost weight. 15 pounds just fell off him like his body was giving up before his mind did. Coffee in the morning, maybe some toast, forgot about lunch. Dinner was whatever Earl brought over, and half the time Franklin just picked at it. The truck battery died on a Tuesday. He went out to start it, turned the key, and got nothing. Dead. He should have fixed it right then. 20-minute job, jump it from Dorothy's car, drive to AutoZone, swap the battery. Simple. He didn't fix it for 3 days, just left it sitting there in the driveway, dead, like everything else. At 3 in the morning, he'd walk through the empty house. Every room echoed. The living room where Mara used to read her magazines. The kitchen where she'd make coffee before he was even awake. The bedroom closet with her side empty now, hangers pushed to one end like refugees. He opened the refrigerator one night, saw his leftovers in Tupperware, single servings, meals for one, This was the rest of his life. 66 years old, alone, 40 years of marriage ending in restraining orders and accusations of incompetence. This was how it finished. He closed the refrigerator, sat at the kitchen table in the dark. Earl came by with news. None of it good. Talked to my contact at the forensics lab. Document analysis takes 6 weeks minimum. Costs $8,000, like I said, but Franklin, Earl set down his coffee mug. Even with proof the signature's forged, challenging it in court is another $12,000, maybe more. How much I got left? Franklin asked. $23,000. After legal fees, discovery costs, filing motions, you'll be broke before we get to trial. Franklin nodded, didn't say anything. I went to legal aid, Earl continued. That attorney I told you about? She looked at your case for maybe 10 minutes. You know what she said? Tell me. She said, Mr. Hayes should negotiate. Give his wife some equity, keep the rest, move on. He probably can't win anyway. Franklin stared at his hands. The same hands that built this house, that served his country, that never hurt anybody. System's rigged, Earl said quietly. I'm sorry, brother, but that's the truth of it. Sunday morning, Franklin made himself go to church. He'd missed 3 weeks, couldn't face it, but he went anyway, put on his good shirt and his decent pants and drove there like a man driving to his own execution. He sat in his usual pew, 3rd row from the back, right side. 40 years in the same spot. The whispers started before the organ did. Behind him, poor man, 2 rows up. Heard she had to get a restraining order. Across the aisle. Always the quiet ones, isn't it? Pastor Mike's sermon was about forgiveness in marriage. Might have been planned weeks ago, but it landed like a hammer anyway. Reconciliation, understanding, the patience of love. Mara's friends kept turning around to look at him, Carol and Denise, and that woman whose name he could never remember, looking at him like he was something that crawled out from under a rock. During the final hymn, Franklin stood but couldn't sing. His throat was closed up tight. After service, people avoided him. Or worse, gave him those careful smiles, the kind you give to sick dogs and broken men. He left before coffee hour, drove home knowing he couldn't go back there. That community, his community for 40 years, believed he was the villain. Wednesday afternoon, Jake showed up at Dorothy's house. Franklin saw it from his workshop window. Jake's truck in Dorothy's driveway. Jake walking up to her door. Big guy, young, 38 maybe. Gym muscles. Thought he was something. Dorothy answered. Franklin couldn't hear the words, but he saw Jake lean in. Aggressive. Pointing. Saw Dorothy's face go hard. Franklin was halfway across the yard when Dorothy said loud enough to carry, I survived the Cultural Revolution, boy. You don't scare me. Jake turned, saw Franklin coming. Stay away from her, Franklin said. His voice was calm, the kind of calm that comes right before something breaks. Jake smiled. Just having a conversation, old man. Telling the nice lady to mind her own business. Stop taking pictures. Get off her property. Or what? Jake stepped closer. You gonna call the cops? Got a restraining order on you, don't they? Can't imagine they'd take your side in much of anything. Franklin held his ground. 66 years old, 20 pounds lighter than he used to be, but he'd been in places Jake couldn't imagine. Done things that still woke him up at night. Jake must have seen something in his face. He backed up, laughed it off. Whatever, old man. Just tell your neighbor to quit playing detective. Wouldn't want anything to happen to her nice house. Wiring gets old in these places, things catch fire. He drove off. Dorothy was shaking, not scared, angry. You okay? Franklin asked. I'm fine. That boy's got more mouth than sense. But her hands were trembling when she pulled out her phone. I got it all on my Ring camera. Every word, including the threat. She showed Franklin. Clear video, clear audio, Jake threatening her property. He's desperate, Dorothy said. Desperate people make mistakes. That evening, Earl called. His voice was different, excited. I've been digging into Jake's company, Pinnacle Lending Solutions. And? They're under federal investigation. Elder fraud, 3 states. The FBI's been building a case for 18 months. Franklin sat up. What? Jake Morrison is named in the investigation. Not indicted yet, but it's coming. I got a contact at the bureau, guy I served with. He gave me the overview. Pinnacle targets seniors with paid-off homes. They use employees to develop relationships with vulnerable targets, seduce wives, befriend lonely widows, whatever it takes. Then they manipulate equity loans, forge documents if they have to, extract the money, and disappear before anyone catches on. Jesus. You weren't random, Franklin. Jake identified you. Paid off house, inheritance money, isolated. You were a mark, and Mara was his way in. Franklin's mind was spinning. Does she know? About the investigation? Probably not. But she knows something's wrong. He's getting sloppy, threatening Dorothy, pushing to finalize everything fast. That's desperation. When's the indictment coming? My guy says April, maybe sooner if they feel like Jake's gonna run. 3 months, Franklin said. Can you hold out that long? Franklin looked around his empty house, at the workshop where he'd been sleeping on a cot, at Dorothy's light across the yard, still on at 8 o'clock because she was still working, still documenting, still watching. I don't know, he said honestly. Franklin sat on the Veterans Memorial bench in the park that night. February cold, snow on the ground, breath fogging in front of his face. The bench had a plaque, in honor of those who served. His name was on it somewhere, mixed in with 200 others. He'd served. Bosnia, 95. Pulled Earl out of that burning truck, got a Bronze Star for it. Conspicuous gallantry, they called it. Funny how none of that mattered now. His own wife could destroy him with lies, and the Bronze Star wasn't worth a damn. He thought about signing everything over, just signing the papers, giving her the house, the money, whatever she wanted, moving into some cheap apartment, being done with it. The surrender fantasy played out in his head. No more fighting, no more humiliation, no more lying awake at night wondering how it all went wrong. Just nothing. He could do that. He could just let go. Earl's voice in his head. Bosnia, remember? When that truck flipped and I was trapped? You could have left me. Fire was spreading. You didn't leave. Franklin closed his eyes. That was different. Earl was his brother. They had a mission. But maybe this was the mission now. He went home. The house was dark except for Dorothy's kitchen light across the yard. 3 in the morning and she was still awake, still working, still fighting for him when nobody else would. He lay on the cot in the workshop. Couldn't sleep. Mind racing. His phone buzzed. Email notification. No sender name. Subject line. Your father needs you. Franklin opened it. It wasn't addressed to him. It was forwarded. Sent to someone named Vicky Hayes, 1982 at gmail.com. His daughter, Vicky, who hadn't spoken to him in 8 years. The email contained 3 attachments, photos of Mara and Jake at the hotel, the bank statement showing the theft, a PDF of the divorce filing claiming Franklin was abusive. The message was simple. He won't ask for help. He doesn't know I'm sending this, but 8 years is long enough. Some wounds need family. It was sent at 2:47 a.m. Franklin looked out the workshop window. Dorothy's light was still on. Dorothy. She'd done this. Reached out to his daughter without asking. Thrown a Hail Mary pass into the dark. Franklin didn't know whether to be grateful or angry. He settled on, afraid. What if Vicky didn't come? What if 8 years had calcified into something permanent? What if he'd lost his daughter the same way he'd lost his wife? And this just made it worse. He lay there in the dark, listening to the wind, wondering if hope was just another word for setting yourself up for more pain. The weather forecast said it was going to be bad. Worst storm in a decade. Travel warnings, schools closing early, the kind of blizzard that shuts down Ohio for 3 days. Franklin didn't care. He had nowhere to go anyway. He was sitting in his workshop when he heard the truck pull up. 7 o'clock, full dark, snow already coming down sideways. He figured it was Earl, maybe Dorothy checking on him. Then he heard the car door slam. 2 of them. Franklin looked out the window. A Honda Accord he didn't recognize. 2 figures walking toward his porch through the snow, heads down against the wind. One tall, one shorter. He opened the door. Vicky stood there. Snow in her hair, her coat dusted white, and behind her a kid, tall, skinny, 14 maybe, scared. Vicky? Franklin's voice came out strange. Got an email, she said. Her voice was shaking. From the cold or from something else, Franklin couldn't tell. Is it true? All of it? 8 years. 8 years since she'd walked out of his life because he told her Derek wasn't worth marrying. 8 years since she'd said, you always criticize, never happy for me, just leave me alone. And here she was, standing on his porch in a blizzard. Come in, Franklin said. You're freezing. They stood in the kitchen dripping snow. The kid, Marcus had to be Marcus, hovered behind his mother like he wasn't sure what to do with his hands. This is Marcus, Vicky said. Your grandson. Franklin looked at the boy. 14 years old. He'd missed all of it. Every birthday, every school play, every baseball game. 8 years of being a grandfather and not knowing it. Marcus, Franklin said. Good to meet you. The boy nodded. Hi. Vicky pulled out her phone, showed him the email. I got this 2 days ago. I didn't know if I should come. I didn't know if it was real or if you even wanted to see me. It's real, Franklin said. All of it. He showed her the documents, The divorce filing, the restraining order, the bank statements, laid them out on the kitchen table like evidence at a trial. Vicky read through them. Her face changed as she went, shock to anger to something else, something that looked like grief. She said you were abusive, Vicky said quietly, that you'd become paranoid and controlling, that she was afraid of you. I never touched her, never yelled, never threatened. I know, Vicky said. She was crying now. I know, because I remember who you are. I didn't want to remember. It was easier to stay angry. Marcus spoke for the first time. Grandpa? The word hit Franklin like a fist. Yeah, son, I'm your grandpa. Mom's been crying a lot, Marcus said. Yo. Since she got the email, she cried for like an hour, and then she said we were driving here. In a blizzard, Franklin said. She said it couldn't wait anymore. The knock came 20 minutes later, Dorothy carrying a container of soup. Saw the car, she said. Then she saw Vicky and stopped. Oh, you came. You sent it, Vicky said. Not a question. Dorothy didn't deny it. 8 years is long enough. Your father needed you. Vicky started crying again. Dorothy set down the soup and hugged her. Two women who'd never met, holding on to each other in Franklin's kitchen while the blizzard raged outside. Marcus looked at Franklin. Is this normal? I don't know anymore, son. Earl showed up an hour later on a snowmobile. Said the roads were already impassable, but he'd gotten Franklin's text about Vicky and had to come. Brought his briefcase and his legal pads and that look he got when he was planning something. They gathered around the kitchen table, Franklin, Earl, Dorothy, Vicky. Marcus sat in the living room pretending to play on his phone while he listened to everything. Okay, Earl said. Here's where we are. Court date is March 15th, 3 weeks. We need character witnesses, family helps, a lot. He looked at Vicky. I'll testify, she said immediately. Whatever you need. Earl nodded. Good. Dorothy's got her documentation. I've got the federal investigation angle, but there's something else. He pulled out his laptop. I've been digging deeper into Jake Morrison. The guy's in serious trouble. His company's under federal investigation, like I said. But personally, he's drowning. BMW's leased and 3 months behind on payments. His apartment building is evicting him. And here's the kicker. Earl turned the laptop around, showed them a news article dated 2 days ago. Federal warrant issued in multi-state elder fraud case. Jake Morrison's name was right there in the second paragraph. He's wanted for questioning, Earl said. Not indicted yet, but it's coming. And my contact says Jake knows it. He's been liquidating assets, closing accounts, getting ready to run. Does Mom know? Vicky asked Franklin. I don't think so, Franklin said. She's still with him, still posting pictures, Bao. She's being used, Dorothy said flatly. That boy targeted your father specifically. The house, the money, the isolation. Your mother was just the access point. Vicky's face hardened. I need to see her, talk to her. Restraining order, Earl said. Franklin can't go near her, but you can. Tomorrow, Vicky said, when the road's clear. The power went out around 10, the whole neighborhood went dark. Generator kicked in at the courthouse downtown, but residential areas were out until morning at least. Franklin lit candles. Dorothy went home to check on her house. Earl decided to stay, wasn't driving that snowmobile back in this. Marcus found Franklin in the den. The kid was looking at something on the wall. What are these? Marcus asked. Franklin looked. His medals, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, commendation letters in frames. He'd put them up 30 years ago and stopped seeing them. Army stuff, Franklin said. Long time ago. Marcus read the citation for the Bronze Star. For conspicuous gallantry and risk of life above and beyond the call of duty. He looked at Franklin. Were you a hero? No, Franklin said. Heroes are the ones who didn't come home. But you saved someone. Yeah, Earl, guy out there on the snowmobile. His truck got hit by mortar fire, flipped, caught fire. I pulled him out. Were you scared? Franklin thought about it. Terrified. But you do it anyway. That's all it is, being scared and doing it anyway. Marcus was quiet for a minute. Then, is that what you're doing now, with Grandma? Smart kid. Yeah, Franklin said. I guess it is. Mom told me you were mean. That's why we didn't see you, but you don't seem mean. Your mom was angry at me. Had a right to be. I said something that hurt her. What did you say? Told her the man she was marrying wasn't solid, that she'd regret it. Was he? No, he wasn't. Did she regret it? Marriage lasted 3 years. Marcus nodded like that made sense. So you were right, but she stayed mad anyway. That's about the size of it. That's dumb, Marcus said. Franklin laughed. First real laugh in weeks. Yeah, son, it is. They all ended up staying the night. Blizzard was too bad to go anywhere. Vicky took the guest room, Marcus on the couch, Earl in the recliner. Dorothy came back over around midnight with blankets and her cat. Franklin lay in his workshop on the quay listening to the wind and the house settling and the sounds of people breathing in the rooms beyond. His house hadn't been this full in years. He thought about tomorrow, about the court date 3 weeks away, about testimony and evidence and whether any of it would matter. But mostly he thought about Marcus asking if he was scared and doing it anyway. Yeah, he was scared. Scared the judge wouldn't believe him. Scared he'd lose the house. Scared Vicky would realize coming back was a mistake. Scared of being 66 and alone and starting over with nothing. But he was doing it anyway. That had to count for something. The week after the blizzard, Franklin's kitchen turned into a war room. Dorothy had her documentation spread across the table. 74 photographs, spreadsheets with timestamps, license plate records, witness statements from Harold Perkins 2 doors down, and Louise Martinez across the street who worked night shift and saw the comings and goings. Earl had 3 bankers' boxes full of financial records, bank statements, loan applications, forged signatures, expert analysis from a forensic document examiner who'd looked at the paperwork and said straight up, "Somebody practice this signature. A lot." And Vicky was on the phone with lawyers, with the court, with anybody who'd listen. Marcus sat in the corner doing homework and listening to everything. "The competency evaluation is scheduled," Earl said, checking his phone. "March 8th, Dr. Helen Crawford. She's court-appointed, supposed to be neutral." "What does that mean?" Franklin asked. "Means she interviews you, interviews Mara, looks at medical records, does cognitive tests. Then she writes a report for the judge. If she says you're competent, we're good. If she says Mara's concerns have merit, then I lose everything. Then it gets complicated." Earl pushed his reading glasses up. "But here's the thing. You're sharp, Franklin. You built this whole case file. You remember dates, details, everything. That's going to show." Dorothy looked up from her laptop. "I talked to the bank manager, Mr. Reynolds. He remembers Mara coming in 3 times asking about my husband's accounts. Said she seemed pushy, made him uncomfortable. He's willing to give a statement." "That helps," Earl said, making notes. Vicky came in from the other room. "I called Mom." Everyone stopped. "And?" "She wouldn't talk to me. Said I was betraying her, that Dad had poisoned me against her. Then she hung up." Vicky sat down hard. "I tried. I really tried." Franklin reached over, squeezed her hand. "I know." The competency evaluation was on a Tuesday. Dr. Helen Crawford was maybe 60, professional, no nonsense. She interviewed Franklin for 2 hours in her office downtown. Memory tests first. Recall 3 words, count backward from 100 by 7s. Name the president, the date, the day of the week. Franklin got them all. Then daily functioning questions. "Walk me through your typical day, Mr. Hayes." "Wake up at 6, make coffee, check the news, work in my workshop, I fix radios for folks, build things. Right now I'm converting part of the shop into a guest room for when my daughter visits." "You're building a room yourself?" "Yes, ma'am. Framing, wiring, drywall, same as I did when I built the house." Dr. Crawford made notes. "And your finances? Who manages those?" "I do. Always have. Online banking. Pay bills on time. Budget's tight since the theft, but I manage." "The theft?" Franklin pulled out his documentation, the bank statements, the withdrawal timeline, the forged loan application, everything organized, tabbed, indexed. Dr. Crawford looked through it. Her eyebrows went up. "This is very detailed work, Mr. Hayes?" "Used to be a logistics officer. Organization is what I do." "I can see that." She made more notes. "Mr. Hayes, your wife claims you've been forgetful, confused, sometimes aggressive. Have you experienced any of those symptoms?" "No, ma'am. I remember things fine. I'm not confused, and I've never been aggressive with her or anyone else." "Never raised your voice?" "In 40 years? Probably at some point. Can't recall specifics, but I never threatened her, never made her afraid." More notes. Then, "I'll need to interview Mrs. Hayes as well. That's protocol. I'll have my report ready before your court date." Franklin left not knowing what she'd write. Marcus was spending his spring break at the house. Week and a half of having his grandson around, teaching him things, They worked in the workshop mostly. Marcus was building a birdhouse under Franklin's supervision. Measure twice, cut once, Franklin said, watching the boy mark the wood. You've said that like 100 times, Grandpa. That's because it's true every time. Marcus cut the piece. Perfect. Set it in place. Your mom tell you why we didn't talk for 8 years? Franklin asked. Marcus looked up. She said you told her not to marry my dad, that you didn't trust him. That's right. I told her he wasn't solid, that she'd regret it. Were you right? Yeah. Doesn't mean I should have said it that way. Could have been gentler, could have supported her even when I disagreed. But you were trying to protect her. Trying and succeeding are different things, son. I was right, but I lost her anyway. Being right doesn't matter much if you're alone. And Marcus hammered in a nail. She said she was wrong, too, for staying away, for being stubborn. We were both stubborn. Sometimes that's what family does. Stay mad when we should be talking. Are you still mad? Franklin thought about it. No, just sorry for the lost time. Can't get those 8 years back. But you got now, Marcus said. Smart kid. The call came from Edith Hayworth on a Thursday. Edith was the church secretary, 72, been at First Methodist since before Franklin moved to town, organized every potluck, knew every secret, remembered every prayer request from 40 years back. Franklin, it's Edith. I need to talk to you about something. Okay. We've been watching, me and Maureen and Patricia, what Mara's been saying about you. Franklin waited. It's not true. We know it's not true, and we're not going to sit quiet about it. Edith, listen to me. We've known you 40 years. You're a good man, quiet, steady, never caused trouble. And Mara, Edith paused. Mara's been lying. Her stories keep changing. First you were forgetful, then you were controlling, then you were threatening. That's how you know someone's lying, Franklin. They can't keep it straight. I appreciate that, but we've written affidavits, all three of us. Specific dates, specific conversations, specific contradictions. We're testifying at your hearing if Earl needs us. Franklin's throat got tight. Why would you do that? Because it's right. Because lies shouldn't win. Because you deserve people to stand up for you. Her voice softened. And because we're ashamed we didn't do it sooner. We saw what was happening and we whispered about it instead of acting. Well, we're acting now. After he hung up, Franklin just sat there. 3 church ladies he barely knew were putting their reputations on the line for him. Dorothy came over that afternoon with news of her own. Jake showed up at Harold's house last night. Harold Perkins was the retired Marine 2 doors down, 70 years old and still looked like he could put you through a wall. What did he want? Tried to intimidate him. Told Harold to keep his mouth shut, not testify, mind his business. Harold told him to get off his porch before he made him. Jake leave? Eventually, but Harold called the cops, filed a report. There's a pattern now, Franklin. Jake threatened me, threatened Harold, got caught on camera both times. He's desperate and making mistakes. Earl confirmed it when he came by that evening. Jake's apartment is cleaned out. BMW was found at Cleveland Airport, long-term parking. He ran? Not yet, but he's positioning, getting ready to. My FBI contact says the warrant's about to go public. Local paper got wind of it. Sure enough, the next morning's Beacon Journal had it on page 3. Local man wanted in federal elder fraud investigation, Jake Morrison's name, his photo, Pinnacle Lending Solutions, the whole thing. Franklin's phone started ringing, people he hadn't heard from in months, neighbors, church members. Tommy from the hardware store. Franklin, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Franklin, we should have believed you. Franklin, if there's anything we can do. The narrative was shifting, slowly, but shifting. 5 days before the trial, Mara's lawyer called Earl. Is there room to negotiate? Earl put him on speaker. Franklin and Vicky listened. Negotiate what? Earl said. Mrs. Hayes is willing to drop some of the claims, the competency issue, the abuse allegations, in exchange for a fair property split. Define fair. 60-40, she gets 60% of the house value. He keeps his pension. Earl looked at Franklin. Franklin shook his head. No deal, Earl said. She stole $47,000. She forged documents. She committed perjury. We're not negotiating. See you in court. He hung up. Jake's gone, Vicky said quietly. Mom's lawyer is trying to salvage what he can. She knows she's in trouble. Good, Dorothy said from the doorway. Nobody had heard her come in. She should be scared. She tried to destroy a good man. Actions have consequences. The night before the trial, they had dinner at Franklin's house. Dorothy made pot roast, Earl brought bread, Vicky made salad, Marcus set the table. It felt like family. After dinner, Marcus showed Franklin the finished birdhouse. They'd completed it together over the past week, painted it, shingled the roof, hung it from the oak tree in the backyard. "Can we check on it this weekend?" Marcus asked. "See if any birds move in?" "Count on it, son." Vicky pulled Franklin aside while they were cleaning up. "Dad, whatever happens tomorrow, I'm sorry. For 8 years of silence, for not believing in you, for choosing pride over family." "I chose it too," Franklin said. "We both did. But we're here now. That's what matters. If you lose the house, you come stay with us. We'll make it work. Won't come to that, but if it does—" "Thank you," Franklin said. "That means more than you know." Franklin couldn't sleep that night, lay in his workshop staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow the judge would decide if 40 years of being a good man counted for anything, if evidence mattered more than accusations, if truth could win against a well-constructed lie. At 3 a.m., he saw Dorothy's light come on across the yard. His phone buzzed. Text from Earl. "We're ready. See you at 8. Another text from Vicky. "Love you, Dad. We've got this." Then Marcus, using Vicky's phone. "You're the best, Grandpa. You're gonna win." Franklin got up, put on his suit, the one he'd worn to Vicky's wedding 8 years ago. Tomorrow he'd find out if being right was enough, or if the system would crush him anyway. The morning came gray and cold. March 14th, one day before everything. Franklin made coffee but couldn't drink it. Toast sat untouched on his plate. His stomach felt like it was full of stones. The competency evaluation results came through Earl's email at 7 a.m. Earl called immediately. "Got Crawford's report." And, "Read it yourself. I'm forwarding it now." Franklin opened the attachment on his phone, scanned through the professional language until he found the conclusion. Subject demonstrates no evidence of cognitive impairment, memory loss, or inability to manage daily affairs. Mr. Hayes exhibits above-average organizational skills, appropriate emotional regulation, and clear understanding of his circumstances. Claims of incompetence appear unfounded based on clinical evaluation. Then the qualifier. However, Mrs. Hayes reports observing different behaviors in the home environment. Discrepancy suggests either presentation management in clinical settings or exaggeration for legal purposes. Court should weigh both perspectives accordingly. "It's not perfect," Earl said, "but it's good enough. Kills their incompetency argument. You're officially competent." Franklin let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. They spent the day preparing. Earl drilling everyone on testimony. Keep it factual. Stay calm. Don't exaggerate. Let the evidence speak. Dorothy reviewed her timeline. 74 documented instances, dates, times, photographs. It was airtight. The church ladies arrived mid-morning, Edith, Maureen, and Patricia, 3 women in their 70s who'd decided lies shouldn't win. "We're ready," Edith said simply. "Whatever Earl needs us to say." Vicky practiced her testimony in the living room. What she'd observed, how her mother had changed, the manipulation, the 8-year estrangement used as a weapon. "Just tell the truth," Earl coached. "The judge will see it." Marcus sat at the kitchen table doing homework, but Franklin could tell he was listening to everything. The kid was nervous, kept looking at Franklin like he was afraid his grandfather might disappear. "You doing okay, son?" Franklin asked. "Are they going to make you leave your house?" "I don't know, maybe. But whatever happens, we'll be okay." "Mom said if you lose, you can live with us." "That's kind of her." "I'd like that," Marcus said quietly. "Having you around." Franklin's throat got tight. "I'd like that too." The weather forecast said another storm was coming. Not blizzard level, but significant. Snow starting tonight, heavy by morning. Earl called at noon. "Judge Morrison hates delays. She'll push through tomorrow no matter what. Wants it done." "Good," Franklin said. He was tired of waiting. At 2 p.m., the news broke. Beacon Journal website had it first, then the local TV stations picked it up. Federal warrant issued for Jake Morrison. Elder fraud charges. Jake's photo, the charges, 15 counts across 3 states, wire fraud, forgery, conspiracy to defraud, if convicted 15 to 20 years. Franklin's phone rang. It was Mara's sister, Beth. He hadn't talked to her in 2 years. "Franklin, I need to tell you something." "Okay." "Jake's gone. Took $15,000 from Mara, cleaned out an account he convinced her to open, just disappeared. I know about the warrant. She's a mess, Franklin. Staying at a motel, can't afford anything else. All her friends have disappeared. She finally sees what he was." Franklin waited. "Our mother did the same thing to our father. Did Mara ever tell you that?" "No." When Mara was 15, Mom left Dad for a younger man, took his savings, claimed he was abusive. Dad never recovered, died alone 5 years later. Beth's voice cracked. Mara swore she'd never be like our mother, but here she is. Same pattern, like she couldn't help it. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know it's not about you. It's about her running from something inside herself. And because, Beth paused, I won't testify. Can't betray my sister like that, but I wanted you to know the truth. After she hung up, Franklin sat with that information, generational trauma, patterns repeating, Mara becoming the thing she hated most. It didn't excuse what she'd done, but it explained it. That evening, they had a simple dinner, Dorothy's pierogi, Earl's bread, nothing fancy. Vicky was quiet. Marcus kept looking at her with concern. You okay, Mom? Just thinking about tomorrow, about testifying against my own mother. She lied about Grandpa, Marcus said. Simple as that. 14-year-old clarity. I know, doesn't make it easier. Dorothy reached over, squeezed Vicky's hand. Truth isn't betrayal. Sometimes truth is the most loving thing you can offer. After dinner, Marcus asked Franklin to help him with math homework. They sat at the kitchen table working through algebra problems while the adults talked in the other room. Grandpa, do you hate Grandma? Franklin set down his pencil. No, son, I'm angry. I'm hurt, but I don't hate her or... Why not? Because hate takes more energy than I've got, and because we had 40 years together. Some of them were good. Can't hate all of it just because of how it ended. That's very mature, Marcus said, sounding like a counselor had told him that phrase before. Franklin smiled. Or maybe I'm just too tired to hate properly. Everyone left around 9, Dorothy to her house, Earl to his apartment, Vicky and Marcus to the hotel where they were staying. Franklin was alone. He walked through his house one more time. Living room, kitchen, bedroom he still couldn't sleep in, workshop where he'd been living on a cot for 2 months. This house. He'd built it with his own hands. Every board, every nail, every wire. It was proof he could build something, provide something, be something. Tomorrow, a judge would decide if he got to keep it. He sat in his workshop, looked at his tools, at the guest room he'd been building for Vicky and Marcus, at the birdhouse Marcus had made, sitting on the workbench waiting for spring. His phone buzzed. Text from Vicky. Love you, Dad. Sleep well. Earl. We're ready. See you at 8. Dorothy. Truth wins tomorrow. Have faith. Marcus. Good night, Grandpa. Franklin lay down on the cot, listened to the wind picking up outside. Snow starting to fall again. He thought about Bosnia, about the burning truck, about the moment he had to decide. Leave Earl and save himself, or go back into the fire and maybe die. Trying. He'd gone back. Tomorrow was another fire, another moment of choice. But this time, he wasn't alone. He had witnesses, evidence, people who believed him. That had to be enough. It had to be. The courthouse was old, built in 1898, marble floors, high ceilings, radiators clanking. Franklin stood on the steps at 7:45 with Earl. Dorothy pulled up, then Vicky's Accord. Marcus in a dress shirt, looking nervous. The church ladies arrived together, 3 women ready to testify. You ready? Earl asked. Franklin looked at his army. As I'll ever be. Courtroom C was small. 20 rows of wooden benches worn smooth by a century of justice-seeking. Judge Alice Morrison entered at 8 sharp, 62, gray hair, reading glasses, no nonsense. Let's proceed, she said. Civil action, dissolution of marriage, property dispute. Mr. Brennan, begin. Mara's public defender stood. Your Honor, my client endured 40 years with a man who became controlling and volatile. She deserves protection and fair distribution. Mara took the stand. Conservative dress, no makeup, looked smaller than Franklin remembered. Can you describe your husband's behavior? Brennan asked. He became paranoid, accused me of things I never did. Following me, I was frightened. Her voice shook. Did he threaten you? The way he looked at me sometimes. I had to leave. Good performance, almost believable. Earl stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Hayes, you say you were terrified, yet you returned to the marital home multiple times, alone. Why? To get belongings during the day. You don't remember where you were going when allegedly being stalked on February 3rd? Mara hesitated. It was stressful. You withdrew $47,000 in 3 months. Where is it? Living expenses. Can you provide receipts? I don't have them. Did you give money to Jake Morrison? Her face changed. He helped with rent. Where is Jake Morrison today? I don't know, she whispered. He left you, took your money, when the federal investigation went public. Objection. I'll allow it, Judge Morrison said, interested. Earl let silence hang. No further questions. Mara left the stand shaken, victim narrative cracking. At 10:30, the lights died. Storm knocked out power, generator kicked in, dim emergency lighting, cold. Judge Morrison looked around. We'll proceed. Weather won't stop justice. Earl called Dorothy Chen. She walked to the stand, 70 years old, back straight. I documented everything, Dorothy said. 74 photographs, timestamps, license plates. My late husband was betrayed similarly. I couldn't help him. Mr. Hayes deserved better. Earl presented her binder. Judge Morrison examined it, impressed. Brennan tried. Just nosy neighbor behavior? Dorothy looked over her glasses. Public streets, public parking lots, no privacy invaded, just citizen observation. Why involve yourself? Because lies shouldn't win. Brennan sat down defeated. The courtroom doors opened. 3 church ladies entered. Mara went white. Edith Hayworth testified first. I've known Franklin Hayes 40 years. Never aggressive, never unstable. Mara's stories kept changing. That's how you know someone's lying. Maureen Patterson. I saw Mara and Jake at Riverside Diner, kissing. She looked happy, not afraid. Patricia Gomez. Mara said Franklin was declining. I saw him the next day, sharp, researching property law, no decline. 3 credible witnesses, all contradicting Mara. Judge Morrison watched Mara cry, not victim tears, shame. Vicky took the stand. Why testify against your mother? Earl asked gently. Because I was wrong. I stayed away 8 years out of pride, but the man my mother describes isn't the man who raised me. Tears now. My mother has always needed validation. This isn't about Dad's failures, it's about her fears. Powerful. Even Brennan didn't cross-examine. Franklin testified last. I loved my wife, built her a good life. I don't know when that stopped being enough, but lying, trying to take everything, that's greed, not marriage. Judge Morrison asked directly. What do you want, Mr. Hayes? My house, my savings, my reputation. Proof that doing right counts for something. Simple, honest, devastating. Earl's closing. This is elder exploitation, systematic theft, forged documents, false accusations. Her accomplice is a federal fugitive. My client deserves justice. Brennan. 40 years of marriage means something. Earl. She stole from him, lied about him. That's not a spouse. That's a predator caught in the act. Judge Morrison called recess. 12:45. They filed back in. Judge Morrison looked at Franklin, then Mara. I'm prepared to rule. Silence. Just the generator humming. Snow outside. Mrs. Hayes, your abuse claims are unsupported and contradicted by credible witnesses. Your incompetence claims are refuted by psychiatric evaluation and Mr. Hayes's demonstrated capacity. Mara's head dropped. The financial evidence shows systematic theft. $47,000, forged documents, coordination with a federal fugitive. This wasn't protection. This was exploitation. Judge Morrison leaned forward. I'm dismissing all of Mrs. Hayes's claims with prejudice. The home remains Mr. Hayes's sole property. Mrs. Hayes must return $47,000 within 90 days. Franklin's breath caught. Divorce granted on grounds of fraud. No alimony. Each party pays own fees. Protective order issued. Mrs. Hayes may not contact Mr. Hayes without written permission and law enforcement escort. The gavel cracked. Case closed. Dorothy squeezed Franklin's shoulder. Vicky cried. Marcus smiled. We won, Earl said. Mara sat alone, broken. Franklin felt pity, just a second, then remembered the lies. Pity passed. Outside, sun breaking through clouds. Reporter approached. Mr. Hayes, comment? Tired. Ready to go home. Sheriff handed him an envelope. Federal Prosecutor's Office? Request for victim witness testimony. Jake arrested in Florida. Other victims, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio. Will you testify? Earl asked. Franklin saw the other names. Yeah, if it stops him hurting someone else. Back at the house, coffee, cookies, Marcus on the couch. Peace. Not happiness, but peace. What now? Vicky asked. Finish the guest room. Hang the birdhouse. Fix radios. Franklin smiled. That's enough. Dorothy's phone buzzed. Mara's sister picked her up, driving to Arizona. Good, Franklin said. That evening, Franklin walked through his house. Living room, new chair for visitors. Kitchen, coffee with different company. Bedroom, maybe he'd sleep there again. Workshop, Marcus's learning space now. This house survived. He survived. Marcus called. Grandpa, can we make pancakes? Franklin smiled. Yeah, son. 40 years ended, something else beginning. 12:45. They filed back in. Judge Morrison looked at Franklin, then Mara. I'm prepared to rule. Silence. Just the generator humming, snow falling outside the tall windows. Mrs. Hayes, your abuse claims are unsupported by evidence and contradicted by multiple credible witnesses. Your incompetence claims are refuted by psychiatric evaluation and Mr. Hayes's demonstrated organizational capacity in building this very case. Mara's head dropped. The financial evidence shows systematic theft. $47,000 withdrawn without consent. Forged documents proven by forensic analysis. Coordination with an individual, now wanted by federal authorities for the exact same scheme across 3 states. This wasn't a frightened wife protecting herself. This was calculated exploitation. Judge Morrison removed her glasses. I'm dismissing all of Mrs. Hayes's claims with prejudice. The marital home remains Mr. Hayes's sole property, as he built it and maintained it throughout the marriage. Mrs. Hayes is ordered to return all withdrawn funds, $47,000, within 90 days. Payment plan acceptable if proper documentation is filed. Franklin felt something in his chest loosen. After months of drowning, he could breathe. I'm granting the divorce on grounds of irreconcilable differences in financial fraud. No alimony, each party responsible for their own legal fees. I'm also issuing a protective order. Mrs. Hayes may not contact Mr. Hayes or enter his property without written permission and law enforcement escort. The gavel came down. Sharp crack against wood. This case is closed. The courtroom erupted in quiet movement. Dorothy squeezed Franklin's shoulder. Vicky was crying with relief. Marcus smiled for the first time all day. Earl shook Franklin's hand. We did it. You did it, Franklin said. No. We did it. All of us. Across the aisle, Mara sat motionless. Her lawyer was already packing his briefcase, moving on. She looked small, alone. The weight of consequences settling on her shoulders. For just a moment, Franklin felt sorry for her. 40 years of marriage. Now this. Then he remembered the lies, the theft, the attempt to erase him, the pity passed. Outside the courthouse, snow was letting up, sun breaking through the clouds for the first time in days. A news crew waited. Small town story. Mr. Hayes, how do you feel? Franklin looked at the camera, at Vicky and Marcus and Dorothy and Earl standing beside him, his army. Tired, he said honestly. Ready to go home. Any comment on Jake Morrison's federal charges? Justice has a way of catching up to people. That's all I'll say. Sheriff Morrison approached with an envelope. Federal Prosecutor's Office? Came this morning. Franklin opened it. Request for victim witness testimony. Jake Morrison arrested in Florida 3 days ago. Prosecutors building their case. They needed Franklin's testimony, his documentation, his evidence, other victims listed, an elderly woman from Michigan, a widower from Pennsylvania, 3 more cases across Ohio. Franklin's fight had helped catch a predator. Will you testify? Earl asked. Franklin looked at the names. Other people Jake had hurt, other families destroyed. Yeah, he said. If it stops him from doing this to someone else, then yeah, I'll testify. Vicky hugged him. That's the dad I remember, standing up when it matters. Back at Franklin's house, Dorothy made fresh coffee. Earl found cookies in the cupboard. Marcus sprawled on the couch, looking relieved it was over. Franklin sat in his living room, in his house, legally his, and felt something he hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not happiness exactly. The marriage was still over, 40 years still gone. Mara was still out there somewhere dealing with her choices, but peace, hard won, earned through months of fight. What now? Vicky asked. Franklin looked around. Now I finish the guest room. Get it ready for your next visit. Hang that birdhouse Marcus made. Maybe fix a few more radios. Live my life. That's it? That's enough. Earl raised his coffee mug. To Franklin Hayes, who proved that doing right matters, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. They clinked mugs. Coffee, not champagne. Working class victory, but victory nonetheless. Dorothy's phone buzzed. She looked at it, showed Franklin. Mara moved out of the motel. Her sister picked her up. They're driving to Arizona tonight. Good, Franklin said, and meant it. Better for her to start over somewhere else, away from the wreckage she'd created. Marcus came over, leaned against Franklin's chair. You won, Grandpa. Franklin put his arm around the boy. We won, son. All of us. 6 weeks later, spring came to Ohio. Snow melted, green shoots appeared, the oak tree in Franklin's backyard started budding. Late April brought real warmth, the kind that made you believe winter was actually over. Franklin sat on his porch at 6 a.m. with coffee in a new mug. The old chipped one was gone. Time for something different. Marcus was inside sleeping. Spring break visit, part 2, 10 days this time. Learning, building, being a grandson, the birdhouse they'd made hung in the oak tree. Finches had moved in. Franklin watched them carry nesting material, life continuing. The house was different now. The guest room was finished. Real bedroom. Vicky's when she visited, Marcus's when he stayed. The workshop was shared now. Marcus's tools hung next to Franklin's. Projects in progress, grandfather teaching grandson the way Franklin's father had taught him. Continuity, Franklin slept in his bedroom again. Took 3 weeks to manage it. New sheets, different pictures, his space again. Not forgetting Mara, just making room for what came next. Vicky came every other weekend. They'd sit on the porch and talk. About the 8 lost years, about Derek, about pride, and stubbornness. I wasted so much time, Vicky said one Saturday. We both did, Franklin said, but we're not wasting more. Marcus was thriving, loved the workshop, already talking about trade school instead of college. Knowing how to fix things with your hands, Franklin told him, that's never wasted. They finished a bookshelf together. Marcus wanted it for home. Measured, cut, sanded, stained. Perfect. We made this, Marcus said, touching the wood. Yes, we did, son. Dorothy became regular, coffee 3 mornings a week, poker night with Earl every Wednesday. You've adopted me, Franklin said one morning. Someone had to. You were looking pathetic for a while. Thanks for that, she smiled. Henry would have liked you. You remind me of him, steady. Earl stopped by most days, sometimes with updates. Mara had paid back $30,000, payment plan for the rest, sometimes just to talk. You doing okay? Earl asked one evening. Yeah, Franklin said. I actually am. The federal trial was in June. Franklin would testify. Jake was looking at 18 years. 3 other victims had come forward after Franklin's case. One of them, an elderly woman from Michigan, called to thank him. You gave me courage, she said. When I saw you fight, I thought maybe I could too. That mattered more than the house. He'd helped someone else survive. Church was different. Pastor Mike had apologized. The congregation had apologized. Franklin went most Sundays, real respect now, not pity. The church ladies watched out for him. Edith brought casseroles. Maureen invited him to Bible study. You're a hero around here, Edith said. I'm not a hero. I just didn't quit. That's what makes you one. Mara was in Arizona, living with her sister Beth, working retail, quiet life. She'd sent a letter in March. Franklin, I don't expect forgiveness. I destroyed 40 years because I was scared of getting old. Jake made me feel young. By the time I realized what he was, I was in too deep. You were a good husband. I threw that away. I'm paying you back. It'll take time, but I'm paying. I hope you're okay. Mara Franklin read it twice, filed it away, didn't respond. Some things didn't need responses. Late April evening, Franklin on the porch with Marcus, teaching radio repair. Why do you fix these? Marcus asked. Because things worth having are worth maintaining, and because people need them. You could charge more. Could, but I charge what's fair. That matters to me. Vicky pulled up with dinner. They ate on the porch. Franklin, Vicky, Marcus, Dorothy. Burgers, potato salad, family. Different from 40 years ago, smaller in some ways, bigger in others, but family. After dinner, watching fireflies, first ones of spring. Grandpa, are you happy? Marcus asked. Franklin thought about it. Happy's a big word, son. I'm content. Got people I love, a house I built, work that matters. That's enough. Don't you miss Grandma? Honest question. Deserved honesty. I miss who I thought she was. Turns out that person didn't exist. Can't miss something that wasn't real. That's sad. Yeah, but also freeing. I'm not waiting anymore, not wondering what I did wrong. I'm just living. Marcus leaned against him. I'm glad you're my grandpa. Franklin's throat got tight. I'm glad too, son. Morning came slow and inevitable. Franklin sat at his kitchen table. The same table where he'd read divorce papers 6 months ago, where Dorothy had shown him photos, where strategy had been planned. Same table, different life. Marcus was across from him, eating toast. Vicky was making eggs, humming. Dorothy's text. Coffee later? Earl's truck pulling up outside. The radio played softly. Spring migration story. Birds returning. Cycles continuing. Franklin thought about the journey. December to April. Betrayal to peace. He'd lost his marriage, but gained his daughter back. Met his grandson. Found community. Kept his dignity. Some trades were worth making. Marcus looked up. What are we building today, Grandpa? Whatever needs building, son. Out the window, finches in their birdhouse. Dorothy's car in the driveway. Earl knocking, Vicky laughing. This house Franklin built. Full again, different people, different love, but full. 6 months ago, he'd been dismissed in his own home. Betrayed. Almost erased. Now he had family, friends who'd proven themselves, a house legally his, dignity intact. The journey had been hell, but he'd survived it, won it. Franklin Hayes was 66 years old, builder of houses, fixer of radios, survivor. And he was okay, still woke at 3 a.m. sometimes, but okay. On this April morning with his grandson at his table and his daughter in his kitchen and spring outside his windows, that was enough, more than enough. The radio played. The coffee was hot. His family was close. Franklin Hayes was home, exactly where he belonged.